Okay, it's all live. Okay, I'm Bradley Thomas, and this is the Art of Changing Your Life Coaching, and this is the Take the Road to Freedom Summit, where we're learning how to find your purpose and how to make money, with your passion. And today, my guest is Arthur Woods. He's an entrepreneur, speaker, writer on the future of the purpose economy, and he's the co-founder of Imperative, the first professional platform for people to find and manage purpose at their work. A lot of purpose in this interview. And he's also been featured on Fast Company, Huffington Post, Washington Post, and ABC's Washington Business Tonight. Welcome, Arthur. How are you, man?
Thanks, Bradley. Great to be here.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And once I found my purpose, I discovered it's helping others do the same thing, try to find their purpose and give them back clarity in their life so they can fuel everything they do from that purpose. So why don't we kind of jump in and why don't you tell people, your story, because it's a little different angle, and we'll go from there.
Sounds great. Yeah, thanks. So I was one of those people who just couldn't sit still in college. I was in business school and looking at how I could apply everything I was learning in classes to the real world, and realized there was a real chasm. And so I started a couple companies in college. One of them was a fruit delivery service. We were taking products from family farmers and delivering them to students. And overall discovered I had this real passion for business being used for the greater good. And the nature of this particular business was local sustainability and supporting local family farmers with the ability to reach students. And over that time, discovered that so many of my peers were also in the same boat, where they were looking for a practical application for their studies, and they wanted to do something, wanted to build something right away. They didn't want to have to wait until after college to do that. So entrepreneurship was becoming this big thing. And started a fellowship that basically trains freshmen to start their own companies, gives them a very strong support community. And what that really led me to understand is that the nature of work for our next generation is really changing, and they're demanding something much more than a paycheck. So I was immediately exposed to this whole group of students that were starting their own companies, and then when they were hitting the workforce, they were realizing, wow, I don't want to just wait in line for the investment banking job that all of my peers were rushing off to, and I'm not just interested in money. And so, I realized there was this old paradigm: if you go to school and you learn, you go get a career, you might stay at a few companies and you earn, and then finally maybe you go retire and you give back and you return. So learn, earn, return. But the interesting thing is, as I was looking at these fellows in the program, they were all wanting to learn, earn, and return at the same time. They didn't want to wait to make a difference. They wanted to be able to sustain themselves, and they didn't want to stop learning just because they graduated from college. So I myself had this interesting crossroads where I had the opportunity to delay going to a corporate job and taking that fellowship to new schools. So I did that for about a year, and then I had actually my own fear of failure, and I said, I've started these companies, I've started this nonprofit now, but I'm not ever going to have a real job, quote unquote. And what am I going to put in my resume if I do have to go get a real job? Like this fear of failing and not doing a conventional opportunity. So I actually moved over to Google, and I left DC, where I was at the time, and I went to San Francisco to join Google, and actually entered into a fairly mundane role. I was doing enterprise deployment and support for Google Apps. And Google in general was an amazing place, but I found that I went from this juxtaposition of this super quirky startup where I was doing my own thing and working with a really flat structure and collaborative team to part of the big wheel and a cog in it.
Yeah.
So at that point, realized okay, I'm here in this large company, and my lack of fulfillment is not the company's fault. It actually can fall into my own control. And after a few months of sort of sitting on my hands and waiting for fulfillment to sort of hit me, I realized, well, I actually can take this into my own hands and start to be really inventive while I'm here. So at that point, I actually started to, sort of bend the rules a little bit and try out new things within the company, all adding value to the company, but sort of asking forgiveness instead of permission. And before I knew it, I was actually volunteering over at YouTube. helping them start a new vertical around education, which really was a passion of mine. And before I knew it, that actually was a full-time opportunity that I was reaching. And so I realized, wow, there was this ability to actually take control of my own career and well-being, and it was all really through the lens of what fulfills me and where am I at my best. Long story short, following a couple years at Google, I met a really amazing entrepreneur named Aaron Hurst, who had started a group called Taproot Foundation. And Aaron was the one primarily responsible for the pro bono service space exploding over the last 13 years. And he started Taproot when pro bono really only existed in the legal profession. And he said, I have all of these nonprofit friends, and they fundraise for HR, marketing, sales, all these other functions, and I have all of these professionals in corporate jobs that would do something more impactful. Why don't I bridge the two? And created Taproot to really be a pro bono marketplace. And over the 13 years he ran that, built that up to be $15 billion marketplace of pro bono services distributed every year. Aaron heard from so many of the professionals he was engaging that pro bono was the most fulfilling part of their jobs. And the 5 hours a week that they were contributing to pro bono was what was really getting them up in the morning. So he said, that's interesting. I mean, I've basically created the Disneyland for work, but people have to go home from Disneyland. So before he knew it, he said, well, what do we do to fix work if so many people are saying that the pro bono work they're doing is what's most fulfilling? So he and I met at this really serendipitous moment, and I was looking at work from this vantage point of my own experience, sort of taking my career, my fulfillment into my own hands, and seeing the young generation hitting the workforce demanding something much more than a paycheck. And Aaron said, how do I make all work feel like pro bono work? So we really teamed up and began to realize that there was so much research around what gives people purpose at work, ending up at the bottom of file cabinets. And we realized that there's so much that we can find out about each person uniquely. So Aaron started writing a book called The Purpose Economy, which you referenced, Bradley. And his whole thesis is that we have inherited so many systems and tools from the industrial economy and from the information economy. But those aren't the last economies our world will see. So much of the way that work has been designed, from the way that we clock in and clock out, from the way that we're incentivized, from the way that we are expected to sort of stay in one role, climb the ladder, it's very centered around the industrial economy. And that was 100 years ago. So our big goal with Imperative, which we started together, was how do we start to change the nature of work around a purpose economy, an economy that's built around the needs of human beings, where we stop treating people like they're parts of a factory and they're on a conveyor belt, but we start really treating people like people. Mm-hmm. And we enable them to understand what drives purpose for them and really leverage those insights to the way they take themselves to their job every day. So we created a process called job tailoring, which is essentially, following the tailoring analogy, that we treat jobs like we treat a suit that we buy off the rack, like a one-size-fits-all. Mm. We're actually able to get our measurements and understand what uniquely fulfills us. We could actually manage changes to that job and tailor it to fit our needs and bring our full selves to it. And so we created a diagnostic that helps you get your drivers of purpose in about 10 minutes. And what we're doing now is building a system that enables you to tailor your job to fit those things and really help you uncover not only what drives you, but actualize that in the way that you work every day.
Yeah, I think that's really incredible. And there's the space that I'm in, in online and an entrepreneur, solopreneur, working by myself. That's different than the corporate world that I left, but I think the corporate world will never really go away. There's going to be some shift there. And I think if you can put the purpose back in the people so they know what's driving them to help drive the part of the work that they're doing, it creates a happier people, and it's going to create more profitable companies. I mean, there's a lot of huge benefits that are going to happen to all that. So I think that's really cool, and that's awesome that you're doing that, because I got out of corporate and I don't want to go back. But not everybody's an entrepreneur. Right. And that doesn't mean that's a good thing, because not everybody can be. If everybody was the same, it would be pretty boring. So what I mean, you said like a 10-minute a 10-minute test. What are some of the things within that test that help people find their purpose within the work that they're doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what we really look at is less of sort of purpose as a manifest best dev. I found the be all end all. I went to the top of the hill and I got struck by lightning, and here are my tablets. But instead, what are the unique things in your day-to-day that give you purpose? And the first thing is assessing the scale at which you work. And so, looking at this relationship between someone who really is driven by work at the front lines, where you're hands-on dealing with an individual, all the way to someone who is much more behind the scenes and works at a higher societal level and needs to see a long-term impact of their work in order to really be fulfilled. And so we look at that relationship. The second piece is the way that you look at your work and your real theory of change. So are you here to equalize the playing field and make sure everyone has opportunity, or are you instead here to ensure that people that work super hard can have the ability to advance as high as possible? And they're not mutually exclusive, but people usually orient toward one or the other. And then finally, the approach that you take to your work, which is, are you someone who really is driven by creating a unique experience for an individual, bringing people together in a community, creating new structures and systems to solve problems, or unearthing new insights and knowledge? And we tend to find that people are oriented toward one of those. So the combination of those three different drivers forms 24 different possible patterns, and we're finding that people of those patterns, of same patterns, may be completely different in their roles and their functions every day, but they really look at work and are fulfilled by similar things. And so that's really what we're helping people uncover. With that, you're able to build your own personal purpose statement, as we call it, which helps you sort of express those dimensions. What we're now doing is we're using these insights to help create recommendations for what people can actually do to tailor their jobs in the day-to-day.
Yeah, I think that's super important. I mean, I said it again, is that once you know your purpose, everything else kind of gets easier, That's right. And the companies you work for, I mean, it's got to be, I don't want to say an easy sell whenever you guys come in there and they're going to help a company, but it's got to be pretty exciting, at least whenever you're working with them. Yeah. Whenever you guys came up with this idea, how did that, how did you guys start? The question that's coming to mind right now is like, how did you get that across to companies, especially resistant ones that are like, wow, they just need to do their job. They don't need to fill.
No, it's a great question. We think about everything in terms of the adoption curve. So if you think about pro bono, 13 years ago when Aaron was first starting Taproot, pro bono was like way at the beginning of the adoption curve, and there were few companies that even acknowledged it was important. It's since moved, and most Fortune 100 companies have some sort of pro bono function now. So that's shifted on the adoption curve, but we made a conscious decision with Imperative to start with companies that are at the beginning of the adoption curve, and at the very least with champions within those companies who realize that purpose is the priority, their people matter. It's the companies that are saying that our people are our greatest assets. It's not our intellectual property, it's not our computers, it's not our buildings, it's the human beings we employ every day. And we have an imperative to bring them to their best in their work every day. And the companies that are making that logical connection between their people having fulfillment and meaning and being at their best and the business that they're delivering, those are the companies I think that are forward-thinking, and they're the ones that are going to really get ahead. I think when you're unlocking the potential of your people, you're really creating business opportunity for yourselves and your market, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I kind of want to, steer that back a little bit back into your backstory. I see that the thread there is that you and your other co-founder just really love helping people. And that seems to be a thread through a lot of entrepreneurs too, is that they want to solve a problem for someone, or they want to be able to give back in some sort of manner. But then how do you make money at that, at the same time? Was there an aha moment that you had, and it's like, oh, this is something we really want, this is how we're going to give back?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think, for us, we're a benefit corporation. We're extremely driven by our mission. Our mission is to change the nature of work so that everyone has a purpose, right? Yeah. And that is what gets us up every morning. I think there is an economic opportunity there. The business definitely makes money.
That's good.
But right. I mean, I think I tell entrepreneurs all the time, and I think often I'll meet people, especially that are working on nonprofits, that believe they have to throw themselves onto the ground in order to achieve their mission. It's like, no, not at all. You can really, you can certainly make money, and you need to if you want your mission to sustain itself. I think but at the end of the day, we're about our mission of changing the nature of work. And I think the old paradigm of the information economy, where you start a company to get a bunch of users and then get acquired and then go start a new company. I think that's shifting as well, and companies are realizing they have to really create value and solve people's needs and really foster community in order to advance in this next economy.
Yeah, I think it's I think advancing is always a good thing, and always pushing yourself to the next level. And if someone's out there and they're working for a company that is not as forward thinking that you guys normally work with, and they still want to find their they still want to find their purpose, what are do you guys have any tools online, or do you guys or just general advice for people to really start resonating with themselves so they can bring that out in their work?
Yeah, no, great question. Imperative is designed so that an individual can access it. What we've done now is we have the light version that anyone can take online. You can go get your purpose drivers in 10 minutes, and anyone in any company can go and do that. We've had over 25,000 people go and do that. We work with companies so that this can be something that they can meaningfully plug into to serve their people. But ultimately, any individual can go and access this, whether their company sponsors it or not.
Yeah, I think that's really important, that you don't have to have a company tell you what your purpose is or give you the tools. You can go out and find it, And, almost on a ironic note, my purpose is to help people, so your tools are taking away my customers.
Not at all, not at all. Everyone needs an amazing coach and support. So I think and all that we're doing is helping raise the floor.
Yeah, no, and I think it's incredible, and that's something that I think, just to speak briefly about, is that the mindset shift whenever you are an entrepreneur. Some people do have that attitude that I was joking about, is that, oh, you're taking away my customers by improving things, and it's that, that's not the attitude you should really have. It's the attitude of how can I give back, because once you do that, customers start working with you naturally, and they just start coming towards you. And your tool, I can't. And the other part of that is that I can't help everybody. I can't coach everybody,
right?
Nor do I want to. So there's the tools that you're designing and are creating, and a lot of other online things are doing the same thing. That they're kind of like raising, the standard of everybody, once things go out there. So thank you for helping raise the standard. I think it's really awesome. If there's some specific questions people can start asking themselves as they're doing the work to find their purpose.
Yeah, I think one question is who really is generative, and who supports me in this journey. And one of my favorite people who mentors me says that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I think when it comes to fulfilling work, your peer group makes such a difference. So I think one question: who is with me alongside me, who does support me in this, and who's not going to put pressure on me to make a decision that's against my values and against what gives me purpose out of other reasons, right? So I think that's one huge question. I think the other question is, when am I at my best? I think, as I'm learning about what does give me purpose, is it aligning with what I'm doing right now? We tend to find in job tailoring that if you're in a company that has values that don't align, you have a manager that really doesn't support your growth, or you're just completely in the wrong role, a role that isn't right for you, it really won't work. So assessing those things, is do your values align with the company? You have a manager that is also a mentor, and do you believe you're in the right role? And sometimes people are just completely off course, and they need to course correct in order to really get started on this, right?
Yeah. I think that brings up the point I read a couple weeks ago. I forget where it is, but people who are looking for jobs in corporate America now, all the students and the fresh graduates, they're not looking just for a great company. They're looking for companies now that have a purpose, that align with their values. And the question that comes to mind is, so if someone's watching to this now and they are an entrepreneur or they're a business owner, how do they express that in their message that this company is all about purpose, and we want to bring that to other people with our products and services. I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, so I mean, we believe that companies are usually in like one of three stages in this journey, and the first is sort of discovery and foundational. It's acknowledging that purpose is important, and it's starting to really ask to what extent are we actualizing this every day? Are we enabling this for our people? The second stage is integration, where they're really starting to bring this into the fold in the way that they're measuring success for their people, the way that they're enabling their people, the way that they're starting to develop products. This is starting to be a new lens through which all of that works.
Yeah.
Last phase, which we call the awesome phase, we
I like the awesome phase.
yeah, the awesome is where companies are catalyzing this shift for their communities and for other companies, and that's really where they're becoming leaders and influencers. And most companies are really in stage 1 or stage 2, and I think just at the beginning of being at stage 2, where they're integrating the idea of purpose into their practices, but it's still very early days. And again, I think we've inherited so much from the industrial and the information economy. We've got a ways to go before that fully will happen, right?
Yeah. What a question that just popped in my head is, what is when you've started working with companies and helping them empower their employees, what's some of the biggest things you've learned so far about during that process?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I think one is certainly that some are driving blind when it comes to this. They haven't asked their people how fulfilled they are. They couldn't really tell you. You speak to most managers, and they couldn't tell you what uniquely fulfills their people, what gives them purpose. So there's a real lack of transparency, and that's not a slight to anyone, but it's just a matter of we haven't used this as a taxonomy around which we manage companies and enable people. And so there's a huge opportunity there in and of itself just to have transparency around how fulfilled are my people and what uniquely gives them purpose. I think the other thing is, companies in general are very interested in this topic. They're subscribed to it. Mm-hmm. They're looking for the leading, it's like everyone's standing at the edge of the dock and they're waiting for the first person to jump in. And when that person jumps in, then everyone will jump in. So, there are already a couple companies that are emerging as sort of, the first movers, and that's going to be exciting because they're going to see results, and other companies they're going to look at it and say, wow, we want those results as well, right?
Yeah, I think it's really important to be able to bring that to them. And I'm still working within my business and getting things launched too, but I can also see myself eventually, going back to corporate in some kind of speaking role and using the tools that I found, how I found my purpose and translated that, and helping others do the same thing. And if they want to go out and quit their jobs, great, wonderful.
Right.
But if they want to stay in their role, but just feel more fulfilled, that would be really awesome. It's exactly kind of what you're doing.
Yeah. Absolutely. I completely agree. And the best thing is that people are able to make the most of the job they have, not just I think we constantly see this issue where people say, well, I'm unfulfilled in my work, I guess I need to go find a new job.
Yeah.
That's a knee-jerk reaction to everything. It's just, I guess, replace it, go get a new one. So there's a huge opportunity to make the job you have the job that you love. And of course, you're not going to stay there forever, but there's always an opportunity to improve what's already there, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I think one question that helped me when I was in corporate America was, how can I help the person that I'm working on this project for? And if you can ask yourself that question, and even if you're doing something that's mundane and you don't think it's for someone, you're doing something for someone, and somewhere in the process, if you're a guy on a factory line worker, you're building a car that's going to get sold to someone. So if you can remember that if you do the best job, that car is going to be better off for that customer. It's one of those questions that it may not be your purpose, but maybe it gives you a little bit more of a better feeling about what you're doing. Does that make sense?
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I want to transition just a little bit and get a little insight on when you transitioned into the business. Was it hunky-dory or easy in the beginning? Was it, give people a little bit of an insight, once you guys started. I really like to show and shine on other entrepreneurs that have started things, that it's not easy. You can have fun with it, but in the beginning stages, there is some work, and things don't always go perfectly,
Certainly. Yeah, to be honest with you, the startup world is tough for those of you that have been in it, and Bradley, you can attest to this. I think it's often a long, hard journey. Every morning I wake up, I am thankful that I took this route, right? But when you're trying to do something, sort of new, sometimes seemingly on the bleeding edge, and you don't have unlimited resources, including time and money.
Yeah.
It's a challenge, right? So I think for me, it was. It's taken us, the greater part of a year to figure out kind of what is our mojo, right?
Mm-hmm.
And really, this is a space, this is a topic that people are interested in. It's a difficult nut that we really haven't cracked yet. And so, where does imperative come in and help solve that problem? And that's been a huge question for us. And we're really starting to have reaffirming developments, right? Where we've had a lot of experiments and a few that are really starting to work. And with that, we started to build out a technology, right? But just like a scientist that's in the laboratory and has a series of failed experiments, that's challenging, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would liken it to that whole process. And overall, it's been a ton of fun. It's been great working with mission aligned. Look at this problem, and they say, I agree with the why, and we want to partner up on the how, right? And those are the people that we love working with, because they're equally interested in what will work, and they want to be thought partners in that process. So for me, the community has been extraordinary. Taking on a big, hairy, audacious goal has been iterative, at times challenging. But I can't think of anything I'd rather be doing. And the last thing I want to do is look back and say, wow, I had so much potential over those 2 or 3 years, and I didn't exercise it. I'd rather be trying to do something that is potentially game changing and falling short than capping myself, right?
Yeah. That question, reminds me, is like, if something's resonating, or if you put yourself in the future self and you're on your deathbed and you are saying to yourself, I regretted not doing that. That's another sign, towards your purpose as well. And whatever you just said just reminded me of that, and I wanted to make sure to mention it. So whenever and failures and mistakes are going to come along the way. Sometimes when you're doing an interview, you forget your train of thought, like just now. Were there some failures and mistakes that you guys have made along the way that really made you guys thinking like, oh, okay, we don't have to do it this way, we can do it this way, and it's much easier? Yeah, anything to share?
Absolutely. I think we launched a couple features without talking to people that we were trying to build them for.
Mm-hmm.
Leaving, sort of just guessing that they would work, and it was sort of like the hammer looking for the nail. Instead of like, what's the building you want? Cool, let me build that. We had this hammer, and we kept like looking for the nail. So
I like that.
That was humbling, because we spent time and resources to launch features that were actually really beautiful features, but then no one used them because they weren't really built for the people we were trying to serve with them. Yeah. So I think we had instances like that. What we're doing now, which I'm really excited about, is we're going out and really listening to people, asking them what are your key pain points in work, how does purpose fit in, how can we really help you and bring something accessible to you that helps you solve those problems. And so it's really getting to the brass tacks of what we're trying to build and what we're trying to do. Frustrating that sometimes it takes you a long time to realize like what the right process is to solve that, but nevertheless, glad that we can also course correct, because there's no startup that I've ever seen that just sort of fast tracks to success. A lot of the last year was also us as a team learning how to work together, and that takes time, and it takes some pain points to figure out solutions, right? So everything is always a step in the right direction. I think it just takes knowing, okay, wait, it's going to take some time, right?
Yeah, I like how you said that, that like you're chasing the hammer, you're trying to build something for a customer and you don't even know if they're going to like it, but you built it because it was cool and you thought they would like it. And I think that's really an important point. I think a lot of entrepreneurs and people who have an idea for an invention, they're like, oh, I'm going to build this and it's going to be great and I'm going to change the world, or I'm going to sell 1 million widgets or whatever, and then you go out and do it and then no one wants it. And the key thing that I've learned is that, and all the other successful entrepreneurs are saying the same thing, is you find your passion and then you go out and find that pain point within your customers and you just ask them. And I mean, it's pretty simple. It's like, what's your pain point? What can I help solve? And then you build that around your passion and purpose, and they just tell you what they want. You're like, okay, well, this is pretty easy. I just have to solve this. Done. Okay, thanks for the money. And it all kind of comes, back. It's not as hard as what it seems to be. I mean, not that it's completely easy, but you don't have to go out and build it. They will actually tell you when you ask them, and then you give them exactly what they asked for.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Build, and with that though, there's the famous Henry Ford quote of, if I asked people what they wanted, they would have told me a faster horse. So, I think we're trying to anticipate, really anticipate what people want and need. Often acknowledging, I mean, for example, with the purposeful, the meaningful work search, most people don't acknowledge that they can make their existing job more fulfilling. If you ask them what they want, they say, I want to go find another more fulfilling job. So then we ask, okay, well, what is it that's making you want to leave the job you have? And trying to uncouple, okay, what is that, and can we help address that pain point?
Yeah.
So that's the type of thing where, I think we're trying to balance those two, because if people said just a more meaningful job, we would just build a meaningful job board. And I don't know if that would solve the actual problem, right?
No, because they would get lost in the minutia of the mundane, boring part of whatever job they're doing. Because no matter what job you're doing, there's always stuff that's going to be part of it that's just not that exciting. I mean, right. I have to write a bunch of emails and schedule things, and I don't know if my purpose is scheduling things, but it's got to be done. So it's just going to come along the way that. That's right. Yeah. Any other little tidbits around finding your purpose that you found helpful, or any big surprises that have come out of this that you're like, I never thought of it that way?
Yeah, great question. So I mean, I guess a couple things. The first is when we do job tailoring, when we train people on job tailoring, when we really get people together for it. The most novel thing that we hear, which is not novel at all, is this is the first time I've taken time to think about these things. So the very first step, I think, in any of these conversations is carve out the time to reflect. Yeah. Think about who you are and really what brings you to your best. And most of the time, people don't give themselves that space, so they never advance to the next step because they never make any changes because they've never really unearthed that insight. So I think that in and of itself is a very powerful first step. And even if you're asking yourself the least profound questions, carving out that space is huge. Mm-hmm. The way that we think about purpose, and really sort of like what we call the three-legged stool of purpose, is around your relationships, your growth, and your impact in what you do every day. And so I think using that as a framework of how deep are my communities and my relationships and my work, how much am I growing and learning and getting out of my comfort zone, and to what extent am I making a difference, and is my work contributing to something greater than just myself? And as a three-way test, if you give yourself a pulse on each of those things, it starts to become easy to tell, okay, and I'm really deficient in one of those areas. I don't have deep relationships. I might be growing and I might be making an impact, but I don't have that sense of community here, and that's something I can focus on. So that's what we really use as like your really quick barometer around purpose in your work every day. We tend to find that it gives you a very good starting point if you do need to job tailor, and I think everyone likely has some aspect of their work that needs to be tailored. Yeah. So, and then I think overall, it's like we discussed earlier, it's finding the support community to really help, hold you accountable. And I think what's also so great about purpose as a concept is it's not existing in any scarcity. And in fact, when you enable it for other people, you experience it more in turn for yourself. So, we really love this idea of the whole career conversation moving out of this competitive siloed landscape and into something that's much more collaborative and communal. Supporting someone else in job tailoring and in reaching purpose in their work, and that actually being a real way that you can bring it to your own work.
Yeah, I think what I kind of heard there is that whenever you're really doing the introspective work, you're going to start finding those areas where things are deficient, and then you'll ask yourself those next following questions: how can I have deeper relationships? How I can have more a better, healthier life? And it all kind of, when you start working on it, you're going to start balancing things in your life wheel out, and it all starts to come together to create a more meaningful, purposeful life that works great for yourself.
Completely agree.
Yeah. So I'm kind of winding down here. Where can people find more about your work and go out and take some of those tests so they can start finding their purpose?
Absolutely. So imperative.com, which is in the banner here, is where you can go and get your purpose drivers. Get your unique purpose pattern, create a purpose statement. We have a lot of articles online about job tailoring, about relationships and impact and growth in your work. There's some videos there. We're launching new features that really help you start to actualize this and take action around these insights. You'll see one thing is you can actually invite your friends to go get their purpose pattern. You can start to see where you line up with other people, and we call that your purpose peers or your colleagues. So, really interesting ways we're trying to help you get transparency for yourself, also around the people that you engage every day and how you can support them. So, check it out and, let us know what you think. And this is a growing community that we're excited to have people part of.
Yeah, and I think I really encourage people to go out and download it, take it, and see where your purpose is, and it will take you it could take you in a whole new direction, or it could just reinforce what you're doing and bring new light to it and energy towards the work that you're doing. Because sometimes it's not about shifting to a completely new job or new career. Sometimes it is. But sometimes it's just that shift. You're just shifting gears a little bit, or you're just changing lanes toward, and it can make just a huge, giant impact in your life. And like you get up and you're excited to wake up, and you're excited to do your thing, and then everything else just starts changing, and you resonate more, and people see you as happier, and there's just a whole host of reasons that you should do it. So I encourage people to go check out imperative.com and download it and try it out. Is there any other avenues or resources that you recommend?
So our book, The Purpose Economy, helps paint a picture at more of a macro level about purpose and work every day, but also really where is purpose fitting into the evolution of what drives our global economy. And so if you want sort of a Freakonomics meets a self-help book, that's a great book. There are comics, because we realized only 20% of business books are actually read. So,
they look good on my shelf.
That's right. I know. It looks great. I love the title. So check that out. That's a great resource. And in general, we're trying to develop new resources and content every day. So I think if you have a question, or a topic around this whole orbit that isn't clear, let us know, and it's something we probably want to explore ourselves.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you being on. I appreciate all the insights. It's been really cool to see it from the perspective of helping people out in the corporate world, because I've left that, but I still know that there's a lot of people there that don't want to leave because they feel driven to it, and they need the job, but they also want to lead more fulfilling jobs at the same time. So, So thank you again, and I guess Any last words of advice?
No, I think good luck on the journey, and I think we're all on it. And even the folks that are in the most quote-unquote purpose-rich jobs right now often have a lack of purpose. So it's all a continuous discovery process, and it's never at the finish line.
It's always evolving.
That's right, always evolving.
All right, well, thanks, Arthur. I really appreciate it. You have yourself an awesome day, man.
All right, thanks. See ya.